South Africa says that 17 of its citizens are trapped in the Ukrainian Donbass right now, trapped in the Donetsk region after joining the mercenary forces of the war in Ukraine. Now, when we say mercenary forces and exactly where they were trapped, they don't clarify exactly where they have been recruited with. They don't say, oh, these are Russians. Oh, these are Ukrainians. They just say, we have 17 of our citizens trapped in the Donbass as mercenaries. Now, mind you, the majority of African mercenaries that have been seen in the war in Ukraine have been fighting on the Russian side. And Russia has had a lot of high-profile scandals for how they have recruited African and other mercenaries from the world, often misleading them about exactly what work they would do, according to the testimony of prisoners captured by the Ukrainian armed forces and others who have communicated with their families and the press afterwards, after either being recruited and posting on their own social media accounts from while in the Russian uniform, or after being captured by the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, they say the men are aged between 20 and 39, but again, they do not announce the allegiance. This might be because South Africa has a quite tight relationship with the Russian Federation that dates back all the way to not only the struggle against apartheid, but also dates back to BRICS and the BRICS alliance and their generally friendly relationship with one another. The government of South Africa has generally been pretty weak on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and so while they don't want to see their citizens fighting as Russian mercenaries, they are quite nervous to come out and start making finger-wagging condemnations of the Russian Federation, a country they want to still be quite friendly with. But these reports and these stories of students in Africa being offered chances to do cultural exchanges, to learn the Russian language, which could open up opportunities for employment in any number of fields, are then brought to Russia, and then they find, oh, they can learn Russian, but they have to learn Russian while working in a Russian defense factory making bombs that are going to slam into Ukrainian cities, something that they might not be interested in. But hey, do they even have their passport, or did they give their passport to their boss? Do they have the ability to leave, or are they now stranded in the country? Or hey, they already came all the way out here, might as well do the work. There's a myriad of thinking that could go on to keep them there at that point. But a lot of deception has been used to recruit people to be interns, only to found that their internship is actually making glide bombs or making shaheds. And this is due to the fact that Russia has a major labor shortage. Russia has a major labor shortage, and they are sending a lot of their men to go fight in the war and die, and that, of course, is a drain on their demographics. But they also have had a difficult birth rate for many years post-Soviet collapse. Now, another thing that they do is they tell people that they're going to work in industries like construction. Young men who have able bodies, who are able to do that type of work, again, between the ages of 20 and 39, when the majority of Russian volunteers at this point are in their 50s. And so they recruit them saying, you're going to work in construction, just hand us your passport, just do X, Y, and Z. Here's our contract in Russian, not in your native language. Sign it. Don't look at the fine print. They come over, and it seems that they're not working in construction. It seems that they've been handed a rifle, and now they've joined the Russian armed forces. And while not knowing Russian and often put through Russian training courses where the instructors are reportedly speaking Russian. I mean, this was something that was reported by an American who actually came to Russia of his own free will and voluntarily signed up in order to get citizenship, which some foreigners, by the way, they're not all being tricked. And it's not hard to imagine that some person could come forward saying, oh, I was tricked, in order to try to get better treatment or try to get released by the Ukrainians and just sent back to their home country. But there are people who have volunteered in order to try to get a fast track to Russian citizenship, or in order to get payments that they just wouldn't be able to get in their home country. But a lot of these people are being tricked. And this deception, it's gross, it's disgusting, and it is contradictory towards Russia's efforts of trying to build up more economic and cultural ties in Africa to be on the ground floor in this continent that is exploding and population exploding in GDP, as they have tried to do in Sudan through the support of the RSF. As they have gone into Darfur and done horrific crimes, they have been shipping weapons to the RSF through the support of the general in Libya, Khalifa Haftar, and his opposition to the internationally recognized government in Tripoli, or in their fighting in the Central African Republic. Their recent military moves into West Africa, where the French have fled, or any number of industrial or cultural exchanges. You would think something like this would be contradictory to that, but the pressures of the war make Russia pull on all strings and on all resources to get manpower, because the fear of another announced mobilization turning the public against the government is so great. Here is one story from a man captured by the 57th Brigade in Ukraine, of him being deceived, from his own words, in a contract, a work contract in Russia, where he was hoping he could go around the world, do sports, and bring his family out of poverty. Goes to Russia, only to be found that he now has to pick up a gun.
For the Ukrainians who took him captive, Evan Kibet's story was unusual enough to post on the brigade's social channels.
I didn't went Russia for military job. I went there as a visitor.
They had caught a 35-year-old athlete from Kenya. That was in July. Now he is here in the Soviet-era prison in Western Ukraine, now being used to hold prisoners of war.
Someone said do sports, lol. He was a runner. He wanted to do running and win competition money to support his family.
Evan Kibet agreed to talk with us, but we cannot.
Which, by the way, them specifically going and looking for athletes and going to athletic competitions to recruit people makes sense when, again, they're getting so many recruits in their older ages that might not be as so fascinated in assault. And if you're taking a debuff, if you will, a negative in the fact that they don't understand Russian, you got to find some advantages for them to make the whole effort worthwhile.
Verify his story. During our conversation, it's only our team and a civilian coordinator in the room.
We signed this contract without reading, without knowing what it was on it. We got ourselves in a situation that there was no return.
He said this summer an agent made him an offer to go to St. Petersburg for a cultural festival, to talk about athletic training and run an exhibition race.
This guy came up before the race and tell us, I can get you a working permit for 1 year.
He and 3 other.
Now, by the way that they do this can be pretty nefarious, where a lot of times they'll recruit locals who, look and talk and know like the type of people that they're communicating with, instead of bringing in like Russian. Like if you bring in a foreign Russian guy in a military uniform, like, yes, work in the field. Field where? Not Donbass. You might be a little bit more suspicious and walk away. But if you have somebody who looks like you, talks like you, and understands you more, a local, who says, oh, yes, it's a great work program. I send money. I did it all back in the day to send money back to my family. That's how you traffic people. The most effective traffickers use young women to traffic young women. Scary, but it's the truth.
Kenyan athletes at the festival signed up and handed over their passports. The next day, they were taken away in a car.
We asked him, where are you taking us? He told us, I'm taking you where you are going to work. We tried to tell him, why you didn't tell us that it's a military work. He told us, you saw the contract. We didn't read it. We don't know how to read the Russian.
They received a week of very basic training.
They show you, this is a gun, this is how you load the magazine, this is how you pull the trigger.
It was very hard.
The Ukrainian authorities have seen increasing numbers of foreigners fighting for Russia. They come from places including Cuba, Somalia, Sierra Leone, Egypt, China, and Nepal.
Part of them were familiar that they will go to Russian army. Part of them were tricked by fraudsters, and part of them already was in Russian territory as students, legal workers or illegal workers, and they were promised that they will obtain Russian passports in exchange to the signing of these contracts.
A world away, this Kenyan village near the city of Eldoret is where Evans Kibet grew up. The oldest of 7 siblings, he's the family's main breadwinner. My colleague Felix Moringa went to meet them. Evan's younger brother Isaac says he's sensitive and thoughtful.
He always cry, be it happiness or sadness, he always cry. Instead of beating somebody, maybe he can decide to cry. And then after crying, he finds himself that he is released from such things.
Evans planned to run in half marathons abroad, hoping prize money could support the family, like Kenyan Olympic marathon gold medalist Eliud Kipchoge, says his mother.
Kibet really wanted to run, and that's why he was trying to go for competitions abroad. And I knew that one day he would raise our standards of living. If he ran like Kipchoge, he would have rescued us from poverty the way Kipchoge has rescued his people.
The family now know he is a POW and worry.
When I eat with his siblings, I wonder whether he has eaten or if he isn't eating, and it gives me a lot of pain.
Back in Ukraine, Evans Kibet insists he thought he'd be running a race, not facing the horrors of the front line in Ukraine.
You go like 10 meters, you see a dead body. You die there, nobody cares about you. You die like a dog.
He says he escaped during the very first mission. He got rid of his uniform and gun and walked until he came across soldiers.
I didn't know, is it Ukraine soldiers or Russian soldiers? I call out, I shouted, hey, it's me. So these guys came out from their camp.
At the prison now, he's stuck in limbo. Between work and meals, there's nothing to do but wait. Foreigners don't get special treatment, even if they were duped into joining the Russian army.
They are invaders, they are part of this Russian invaders' army, and they are prisoners of war. And in case their government not interested, and this is a general case, so they will be treated well in captivity, but they will be kept until the war ends.
Evan's family is trying to get the Kenyan government to intervene and bring him home before then. We get permission to set up a call with his brother Isaac, back home in Kenya.
Hey.
Yes, bro.
How are you?
I'm fine, Bana.
I'm good. This is tears of joy, not that I'm not okay. Yeah, it's good to see you.
How is Ukraine?
It's good.
What a crazy thing to say that as ostensibly he's if his story is true, made into a mercenary. How's Ukraine? Ukraine's good. At least he's being treated well now. You know, at least he's safe, considering everything. And let me tell you, these stories keep piling up as Russia's manpower requirements get more and more severe as they try to increase the infantry assault pressure, and infantry assaults and infantry infiltrations are essential for Russia's continued forward momentum on the battlefield. I expect more and more of these cases to pop up. Here's from the BBC. Police break up trafficking ring. Kenyan trafficking ring trying to traffic Kenyans to fight for Russia in Ukraine. More than 20 people have been rescued in Kenya from a suspected human trafficking ring that lured them with job offers in Russia, but intended to send them to fight in Ukraine, police said. It follows an intelligence-led raid on a residential apartment on the outskirts of the capital, Nairobi, where officers seized recruitment materials, travel documents, and job offer letters. One suspect, accused of coordinating the victim's travel to Russia in September and October, has been arrested. He was taken to court, which allowed him to be detained for 10 days while the police completed their investigations. Russia must act to end long-standing trafficking for labor exploitation of migrant women, UN experts. UN experts today expressed grave concern over credible and well-documented allegations of long-standing trafficking and forced labor of migrant women to Moscow. The victims, primarily from Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, have reportedly been subject to extreme form of exploitation and violence for decades. So this shows that trafficking in Russia has already been a major problem for a long time. And so the use of these tools have just been attuned for the modern battlefield to get men from all across the globe, like this Iraqi man. Iraqi man convicted of trafficking people to fight for Russia and Ukraine. The man formed groups that were set off to fight for money in the hopes of eventually getting to Europe. Imagine you go to Russia to fight under the idea that you'll eventually get to Europe, and under the idea that it'll give access to one of the most capital-rich continents on the planet. Then you get there, and then the Russians tell you, yeah, this is Europe, all right. You want to know how you're going to get to Europe? March to Berlin. Good luck. My goodness. And of course, I mean, this keeps going to more and more countries. It also is affecting the country of Sri Lanka. There have been a few high-profile cases popularly spread on social media of Sri Lankans reporting this. I see somebody in chat saying the classic innocent foreigner didn't know he knew what he was doing and signed a contract with the military. He probably thought he was going to only be a cook or a driver. Here's the thing. I do think that is a concern when you listen to these stories. And I've been offered quite a few prisoner of war interviews, and I've turned every single one down because they were foreigner prisoner of war interviews. And I assumed that the units in question wanted the press to come and interview these people to try to show people, hey, don't join the Russian army if you're a foreigner. And so, exactly trying to figure out the veracity of these claims, both because of what the Ukrainians want and what these foreigners would want, to portray themselves to get the best deal possible, possibly get early release, something like that, even though that's not really happening yet, as these governments do try to lobby on their behalf. But taking them immediately at their word, I think is not smart. But there have been so many reports of this happening and enough trafficking rings broken up by police that saying that all this smoke is not caused by any fire at all would be naive and would be jumping the gun to an extreme extent and could mean overlooking one of the worst cases, if this is happening in the way that the smoke indicates it to be, one of the worst and largest cases of international trafficking for warfare ever done. I mean, I can't think of any other modern case of something like this happening, or of a country using its global ties that it's developed over decades in order to mobilize foreign population for its wars of conquest once its domestic population has no longer continued to provide the Russian army with able-bodied young men to take trenches, but older debtors. And so enough old debtors, and you say we need some fresh blood, and they are finding it in the global market. But the trafficking, I mean, of course, anybody going to fight for the Russian army to go invade is bad. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of these people align, and some of these people certainly knew what they were doing. A lot of these people knew what they were doing. And some of them, it's like getting second thoughts, and you could tell from their videos or their recording, oh, I want to go home, that they thought that they would just be a cook, that they thought they would just be a driver, or they thought the war wouldn't be that bad, or they were told that they would be of the victorious conquering army, and they're finding that being the conquering army is actually coming with much more difficulties than first thought of. But any victim of trafficking should be protected if they are a victim of trafficking, and these trafficking rings should be cracked down upon. And the fact that Russia is so desperate as to risk their reputation in Africa, the exploding demographic continent, the exploding GDP continent, to risk that effort that they've put in all these different countries by having these types of stories go viral in Uganda, in Sri Lanka, and in countries all across Africa, going to Asia and Nepal. I think it shows how bad the manpower crisis really is for the Russians as they try to stop the bleeding and stem the tide so they can win the war of attrition before they don't have as many men to attrit in these, I would say, costly is the moderate word to use, costly offensive.